Gracias. Listo. Una historia.
This is Miguel. He and his family live in western Bolivia on the Altiplano in a town called Quiacas. His day starts before sunrise. He'll be herding llamas in the morning and harvesting quinoa in the afternoon, like so many of his neighbors and so many of those that lived here before him. It starts with Francisco Pizarro in the early 1520s. After hearing rumors of riches in South America, Francisco led multiple expeditions to its western Andean region. These expeditions were the first of many made by men who would later be known as conquistadors. When Francisco and his friends first showed up, among the many surprising sophistications, they found food and agricultural systems consisting of three primary staples: potatoes, maize, and quinoa. With the beginning of Spanish rule in South America, many aspects of traditional life were suppressed. Among these was agricultural life. And while you most likely have heard of maize and potatoes, quinoa just became another subsistence crop for poorer rural families. Its ties to religious ceremony and Incan culture caused the Spanish to scorn its growth, and commonly referred to it as a peasant's food. Since then, indigenous populations have been suppressed in various regions of the continent, including Bolivia. There, social revolution did not come until the mid-1950s, and with it came agrarian reform. The long and short of it, the land was given back to the farmers. Half a century later, quinoa is ever more present in North American supermarkets and restaurants, as its global popularity and consumption has risen over the past decade, along with its price. There is a general belief that this increased popularity is a double-edged sword. While the farmers are profiting more than ever, their traditional crop is priced out of their range of affordability. And with the increased price and popularity comes a reputation and belief that quinoa can be a solution on a much bigger scale.
Frente a la crisis alimentaria mundial, los pueblos andinos tenemos varias propuestas. Una de ellas es la quinoa. El Año Internacional de la Quinoa es un reconocimiento al conocimiento y las prácticas tradicionales de los pueblos indígenas de los Andes.
Because of quinoa's ability to grow in harsh environments and its inherent nutritional benefits, 2013 was deemed the International Year of Quinoa by the United Nations. Events were held, and talks were had.
Y creo que es muy importante que Bolivia pueda realmente aprovechar este momento, este Año Internacional de la Quinoa.
Far away from the UN headquarters in New York are the farmers delivering this much talked about grain.
Una pregunta más interesante. ¿Ustedes han escuchado hablar del Año Internacional de la Quinoa? ¿Y qué piensas del Año Internacional de la Quinoa? ¿Para qué puede servir?
Yo creo que es un shock más con tintes políticos, ¿no?
Una parte interesante del Año Internacional de la Quinoa es que dicen la quinoa puede ser la solución para calmar el hambre en el mundo, ¿no? ¿Qué opinarías de eso, que dicen que la quinoa puede resolver el hambre en el mundo y incentivar la producción de quinoa en todo lado?
Una quinoa como del altiplano sur, yo creo que no lo va a haber. Así que lo siembran en el oriente, en el occidente, en otras partes del país, ¿no? Pues más que todo por tema suelo, ¿no? Es un lugar muy especial que es el intersalar. Nosotros justamente estamos en el medio del salar de Coipasa y el salar de Tunupe, o lo llaman Uyuni, ¿no? Entonces, salvar la hambre del mundo yo no creo. No creo, no.
Tengo 53 años y yo trabajo en el campo con mis ganados camélidos, puedes verlo acá en esta pampa verde, y también trabajo con la quinoa en la producción. Y nosotros aquí en esta organización trabajamos paralelamente en el área de trabajo en este campo. Y yo me siento feliz, ¿no? Siempre nosotros, desde años atrás, desde nuestros bisabuelos, siempre acostumbramos recordar de Pachamama, de la Madre Tierra, donde también nosotros hemos sido descendientes de los españoles y los Incas, para que antes eran la vivencia de los Incas. Y pues Hatunquillacas es pueblo de los Incas.
Quiacas is one of those southern altiplano communities that supply quinoa to the masses. It's a harsh place to travel through, but while it can be difficult for people, it's perfect for quinoa. Quinoa takes its vitality from the sun, and in this particular area, the sun's radiation gets a large boost from the reflection of light coming off the nearby salt flats. The soil and the quinoa benefit greatly from the extra rays, but with the increased radiation, the high elevation, and the dry air, the local growers have only ever been able to farm quinoa. Most of them take their quinoa to a town called Chayapata, located just north of Quiacas. So this is Chayapata Market. Ever since we started researching quinoa, was that Chayapata Market was the place to be for local quinoa markets and everything. This is where all the farmers come in Bolivia to sell their quinoa and to learn about growing it and selling it as well. What is a typical, how much is a typical amount that someone might buy?
Quiero saber cómo lo venden. ¿Venden por el quintal o por kilo?
Por quintal.
Yeah, they sell this whole bag.
¿Cuánto cuesta? ¿Quintal?
¿Cuánto cuesta el quintal ahorita? 780.
780 bolivianos. Okay, cool.
Depende a la quinoa, es 800.
It depends on the type of quinoa. It could be 800 or more.
Okay, what type of quinoa is this? ¿Qué tipo?
Todo clase de quinoa, pues.
¿Y esta cuál es?
Son ¿no? Uyuni es la cosa.
She has pretty much a little bit of everything,
Okay.
but this quinoa comes from Uyuni.
From Uyuni? So
Yeah.
that would be the Royale, I guess. Bags are sold by the quintal, or 100 kilograms. On this day, some Royale quinoa varieties were selling close to 800 bolivianos a bag, about $115. This price is about triple what it was a decade ago. However, this price is determined by the growers, and their main clients are located to the north, next to the capital city of La Paz. Located on top of the canyon in which La Paz sits is El Alto. Most of the country's quinoa processing plants are located here. These plants not only provide an updated way to process quinoa and operate as buyers in markets like Chayapata, but they also provide work for those looking for it locally.
We started out this factory, I think it's going to be 2.5 years, and we're still finishing it up. We wanted to do a factory where every member is respected as a human being, and their true value as a human being is valued.
Introducing this type of industrialization to processing quinoa is an unfamiliar innovation. So much so that some machinery in the plants were designed to process rice or wheat. And quinoa-specific machinery is only recently becoming a reality. Not only is the quinoa sorted by color, it also must be washed.
Here is the place where we receive the grain from our farmers. We are working today with 447 organic quinoa farmers who belongs to our Andean Valley Suppliers program.
The quinoa comes straight from the farm, and while the farmers do their best to sift and wind-wash dirt and debris from the harvested quinoa, the grain still needs to be cleaned thoroughly before it can be packed for shipping.
In all of the steps from here, we have strong magnets to control all the impurities that they contain, or pieces of metals that you can have in the grain. Screws or something like this. No?
Do you find screws in the grain?
Yeah, sometimes really? from some machine.
Yeah.
We found $100 today. Sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, sorry.
You taking this out to lunch then?
Yeah.
But here's the special thing about quinoa is that when you harvest it, it comes covered with a thick coating of saponin. And this saponin coating needs to be removed before the seed is edible.
Saponin removal is essential to the process. Saponin is a bitter shell quinoa forms around its seeds as a natural defense. When it is washed off, it creates a foam that can be used for soap. Before this, the process was done by hand, took hours, and used a lot more water. These factories work with the cooperatives the different farming communities have formed into. Co-op enterprises are the best way for the local farmers to compete in the international market. These organizations, with the aid of the importers abroad, ensure that the land for quinoa farming and llama herding in the southern Altiplano remains in the hands of the farmers. Ancestral right to this land plays a large part.
Each enterprise has its own model, its own way of doing things. Some of them, they bring to these farmers technical assistance. Some others, they bring, for example, organic products like fertilizers. These producers programs have been built in the last 15 years. In Bolivia, it's a community that owns the land. So there is no producer that is the owner of a certain land. The soil is for everybody in the community.
Esta es la cajita y lo que es muy importante.
El apodo en sí es pueblo, pero este último calzón quitado porque me gustó decir las cosas por su nombre. Bueno, es un apodo complementario.
Eusebio was president of APQC, one such co-op.
Estaba previsto esta reunión, ¿no es cierto? Acá, este es Chalula.
On the day I interviewed him, APQC was certified fair trade. And though he is no longer president, Eusebio, like every farmer in the organization, has a voice in the decisions made over their crop and livelihood. Decisions like seeking to become fair trade certified.
Yo creo que un plus es tan bienvenido, ¿no? Que beneficia además en la parte social, educación, salud, todo.
And next, a look at a type of grain that can be grown in Colorado and can feed a hungry world. That and more when News Center 4 continues on this Sunday night in the Rockies.
The stuff has a funny name, quinoa. It looks like sesame seed or millet. It cooks up like rice, And when it's done, it's supposed to have a rich, nut-like flavor.
Quinoa was introduced originally to this country, that as far as back as we know, was probably in 1973 by a Bolivian mystic named Oscar Ichazo, who started a school called the Eureka Institute. And he brought some of the grain up to New York and to Boston, where Steve Gorad and I were actually members of the Eureka Institute. And we saw the quinoa. We were interested in its quality for nutrition.
Quinoa is new to America, but it was a staple food of the ancient Inca civilization and is still eaten today by South American peasants. That it found its way from the Andes to a Boulder warehouse is a credit to years of work by entrepreneurs Stephen Gorad and Don McKinley, who argue that quinoa is not just another trendy health fad. That with 20% protein and lots of calcium and iron, quinoa is something special.
The scientists look at quinoa and they find that the balance of amino acids are the building blocks of the protein, is exactly the type that is needed by the body. And this is unheard of for a plant.
I fell in love with it. It started from just looking at it, and then I'm going, wow, this is really, really good stuff.
Steve and I started importing and selling the grain probably 1981, 1982, and bringing them here to Boulder, Colorado, and then initially introducing them to the natural food marketplace. So that would have been by 1983. That was the beginnings of quinoa as we know it today.
At the time, Boulder was the center for organic food development. Buzzwords like organic, sustainable, and local were being used more often.
We started then going to trade shows, regional trade shows, and selling it to other natural food stores around Denver and Boulder. And within about 6 months, we started looking at the bigger markets, the supermarkets, the gourmet market, as it were. And we started talking with distributors for the gourmet trade.
The first store brave enough to take it directly from us was a store called Alfalfa's in Boulder, Colorado. Don and I and his girlfriend, we would go there, we would do demos, we would give away samples. Whenever quinoa was available, people would actually buy it, cook it, and eat it. They liked it.
So it's an ironic goal in the sense that it must be accepted in the United States before the rest of the world pays any attention to it.
It's delicious.
If more in his generation like quinoa, it just may be a food whose time has come. Reynelda Muse, News Center 4.
Technically, quinoa is not a grain. It's the seed of the goosefoot plant, which is closely related to garden beets and Swiss chard. It contains all essential amino acids in a proper balance, which makes it a complete protein. And it contains twice as much protein as brown rice.
One can see why quinoa is marketed as a superfood. Today, quinoa is the it food, popular among the health-conscious and foodies of the world. And though its popularity has boomed in recent years, it's still catching on.
Quinoa. Ancient grains of the Aztecs, I guess, right?
Well, I know it's a really, really healthy, and I think it's a grain, not a seed.
I know it's a better grain for you. It's one of the ones that I choose.
I eat a primarily plant-based diet, so quinoa is kind of a protein staple for me.
That it's not actually a grain, but it's probably the fruit of the plant, from what I hear.
It is a seed.
Yes.
Oh, I'm liking it better already.
And I've heard some negative aspects as well about how people are saying, they're mistreating the quinoa farmers and that, since we're importing all of this, they don't actually have enough food to be feeding themselves. And I'm not sure the truth to that, but I've heard some rumors.
Well, our growth has been slow and steady, and actually, in the length of time I've been involved with quinoa, we've always grown. And that's been due to the goodness of the grain and word of mouth. Quinoa's growth came from quinoa's goodness.
And while articles are being written addressing the damaging aspects of quinoa's growth, it seems that some essential points are missing.
The people that are making these accusations as far as how this is damaging the Bolivians and the Bolivian quinoa farmers, they haven't been down there. They haven't seen or talked to the farmers themselves, and they haven't seen the progress that's taken place. And they especially haven't seen what it was like 10 years, 20 years ago with the farmers in the farm communities and how desperately these people were living and how this has really changed them. I've yet to find one quinoa farmer or even a Bolivian that to me that has complained about what this has done to the quinoa farmers.
The fact is that quinoa was never very widely consumed in Bolivia, as it's always been considered food for peasant farmers. And farmers are making more money than they've seen in their lives. They keep their sovereignty and decision-making power over their product, which is not only key in competing in the international marketplace, but key in retaining their home and their culture. The articles that have been written do miss the point. Foreign quinoa consumption doesn't endanger the Bolivians. Foreign quinoa removal does. And while South American farmers are free to sell their product to whomever they want, a real threat that exists is one that consistently does when a commodity becomes wildly popular.
The market naturally commoditizes. And when you commoditize, you lose identity, you lose traceability, you lose the farmers, the people behind it. It just becomes a product. And that's a bad guy in the story.
Market competition to Bolivian quinoa comes from similar microclimates abroad. United States, Canada, Australia, Kenya, India. All countries who have begun experimenting with growing quinoa.
But here's what I'm afraid of is when it starts growing in India, initially it'll go for a little bit of the Indian market, but it'll mainly go to the export markets to compete against the Bolivian product. The Bolivians who can't choose to plant potatoes or corn or beans because they work in a very difficult environment where nothing else grows. So in a way, we have to fight to make them competitive on a world scale. And I think the consumer is the one that holds the power to protect those growers.
Bueno, yo me siento feliz porque he tenido un sueño que Dios Padre también eso nos da ese lugar para dormir, para levantarse y para trabajar y para vivir. Y siempre nos recordamos. Entonces pedimos a nuestro Creador que siempre que nos dé el buen día para trabajar bien en área del campo de la chacra, la cosecha, y también pedimos a nuestra Madre Tierra también que nos los cuide en este pastizal, nuestros ganados.
Miguel lives near the Salar de Uyuni, sometimes known by a different name, the Salar de Tanupa, named after the god Tanupa and the mountain of the same name. The story is that the salar formed from a mixture of her breast milk and tears, a result of crying while feeding her baby.
Probably about 6:30 right now. Right up there is Romulo and the rest of the team with us. They're going to show us where Romulo grows quinoa on the side of this big old mountain over here. You're crazy.
Romulo is a quinoa farmer who lives at the foot of Tanupa. He grows quinoa on the side of the mountain and makes the crazy climb multiple times a day to check on his crop.
They worship the Tanupa. They think it's like a very important mountain.
The mountain we just climbed?
Yeah. Well, not the whole thing that we got until around there. Yeah. They worship it. So not only the Pachamama but also the Tanupa is very important to them.
Translated, Pachamama means Mother Earth. And farmers in South America have been working with her for centuries.
It's a custom they have since a very long time ago, but it's very important to them because they live of this, right? They really don't work with anything else than quinoa. To them, quinoa is like the biggest production they have.
Quinoa is called Kisaya Mama. Translated, this means the mother grain. The community invited us to pray with them for a good harvest and to burn effigies. Then, they make a sacrifice. The practice of herding llamas goes as far back as growing quinoa, and the mutual presence of the two is no coincidence. Both thrive on the harsh and delicate microclimate of the Altiplano and contribute to its balance. Just like quinoa is one of the only plants that grow here, llama manure is one of the only available organic fertilizers. The strongest, healthiest male llama is sacrificed in honor of Pachamama.
They take the heart out? Why is still beeping?
Actually, we saw 2 of these.
Oh, what is that? Oh, gross.
The llama's throat is slit and its blood is scattered to feed the land. Promptly butchered by the younger men, the llama is cooked and served, with the best cuts of meat and portions given to the elders and guests. Some communities examine the organs, some communities bury the bones, but all is done in the name of Mother Earth and in the hopes of a good harvest.
Putus konyon he kolke hai vidita auri markan he oro hai vidita jingana kasir solicita. Putus konyon he kolke hai vidita auri markan he oro hai vidita jingana kasir solicita. Española way porente solisa orojeres colquejeres a paz ingana hacer solicita. Española way porente solisa orojeres colquejeres a paz ingana hacer solicita. Pamara chata hay solisa, yo callo avasa chata y solisa, chingana, casier solicita. Pamara chata hay solisa, yo callo avasa chata y solisa, chingana, casier solicita. Hankuna cuenton haitas mai solisa, yo callo avasa chata y solisa, chingana, casier solicita. Así se canta en el campo. Esta canción es dedicado cuando los españoles nos han invadido al imperio incaico. Nuestro oro, nuestra plata se lo llevaron los españoles. Por eso el Inca dijo, el oro que entre al corazón de los cerros y la plata que entre a los huesos de los cerros. Ahora que les cueste el sudor de la frente, así dijo el rey Inca cuando le estaban sacrificándole al Inca. Por eso, hoy en el día, encontrar el oro es difícil. Hay que trabajar mucho, hay que transpirar el sudor.
The systematic removal of a cultural and societal staple takes with it cultural and societal identity and value. South America is marred with a history of foreign plundering that leaves the continent's veins open and gushing. The gold and silver of the Incas is what the quinoa is for their descendant farmers. However, the farmers today have what the Incas lost back then: their land. A breaking point is coming when quinoa production abroad catches up with Bolivia's and competes in the marketplace. But when that happens, the farmers have history and culture, quality and climate on their side.
Esta es mi familia. Nosotros así en grupo trabajamos en la familia. Nosotros como papás tenemos una visión de poder trabajar hasta que la edad que nos acompañe para poder rendir con el trabajo. Y también nosotros antes no era un sostenible la quinoa, ahora es un trabajo autosostenible. Ahora hace dinero la quinoa, antes era para consumo. Por ende, es para mis nietas, para mis hijos, para mis nietos. El trabajo que estamos emprendiendo ahora rústicamente, pero con el tiempo, entonces para nuestros hijos también ya a sacar profesionales, ellos también ya vean el movimiento, el trabajo módico, ellos cómo van a emprender hacia el futuro.
¿Empiezo? ¿No voy a ir bajando? No, él va a subir a verte. Ya. ¿No quieres que me suba ahí? ¿Está bien? No, ahí está perfecto. Api pancarita, hani arman sistati, amtazi kitaya. Api pancarita, hani arman sistati, amtazi kitaya. Api pancarita, ¡Purchicharango! Florcita de espinas, no te olvides, recuérdate siempre, florcita de espinas, florcita de espinas, no te olvides, recuérdate siempre, florcita de espinas. Ayer nomás te fuiste sin decirme adiós, te fuiste. Ayer nomás te fuiste sin decirme adiós, te fuiste.